Good morning. I'm putting these on to look good, not to see well. And we're off. On behalf of the Alumni Board, I have the honor and pleasure of introducing this year's recipient of the John Hardin Service Award, Mr. Stan Ruppel. Stan is here with his family. Why don't you all stand up? Stan and Janice and Jennifer. Where did Jennifer go? Jeff and Lauren. Nice to see you. Stan and his wonderful wife Janice arrived in Bell Buckle in 1974, just in time to teach senior English to my class. There had been a little turnover in the department, and there was great curiosity about the new guy. The first thing I remember noticing about Stan was his height. You might think that's the first thing I notice about a lot of people, but I've always tried to give tall people the benefit of the doubt, and I'm glad I did. Stan was a very popular and respected teacher from the start. Pop, as he was affectionately known as soon as he and Janice were expecting Jennifer, was also just a very nice man. There was a kindness and humility about him, and you always knew that there was an adult in the room. With all the emphasis here at Webb on being a gentleman, what a great hire he turned out to be. Now, he did leave after 4 years, but then he came back in 1988 and stayed for 20 more years. And during his tenure, he became chair of the English department, director of studies, and finally, assistant headmaster. And I've enjoyed getting to know Stan more since the years when I graduated, but I did reach out to a few people to find out a little bit more about Stan. Along the way, Stan, like many teachers at Webb, played many roles wherever he was needed. Jennifer shared that he oversaw the horseback riding group, though he didn't ride. He assisted with skeet shooting, though he didn't own a gun. He taught a week-long class on soap operas, of all things, though he would have preferred semesters of Shakespeare. He also worked with the Quiz Bowl, the yearbook, school magazines, and even announced at the football game. I'll let you decide if you think he has played football. Stan was a man who loved his work, and he was loved in return. During the 90s, when Snoop Dogg was a fixture in pop culture, Stan became Roop Dogg. And after rising to his level in the administration, many referred to him as simply the man. But there was also a worldliness about him. Though he grew up in Nashville, you'd never know it. As Hudson Bird put it, he had this classic mustache, and he spoke in deliberate tones, without a southern accent, and it made you wonder if he was from England. Which at that time would have been pretty impressive for us, I'll tell you. Hudson also remembers a time when he was under review, which I'm sure happened often. He said Mr. Ruppel came in and sort of glanced down and grimaced. It was like a mixture of consternation and amusement. And when Webb was considering the implementation of uniforms, Hudson spoke out against it. Stan also found this amusing and told him, "Hudson, if everyone dressed like you, we wouldn't need uniforms." With this kind of humor, Stan could get along with anybody, even Hudson. Former head of school, John Ferrer, who's here with his wife Penny, it's so great to see you all here again, remembers that when Stan became director of studies, he gave department chairs more oversight of their programs and implemented an evaluation program that included peer and student input. He also took an active part in hiring new faculty and connected them with experienced mentors, sending them also to teachers' conferences in the summer. John says Stan oversaw the entire academic program while still heading the department and teaching. Not an easy task in the independent school world. But any discussion of Stan Rubley has to center on his passion for teaching Shakespeare. You've got to really love that to want to teach it to teenagers. Always looking for ways to make it better. He spent a month one summer at the University of Cambridge studying the Bard and was not above driving a van load of students to Montgomery for the Shakespeare Festival. There's no denying that to have studied Shakespeare or been exposed to Shakespeare has given all of his students an edge in this world. If only to be able to say in this moment, I come to praise Mr. Rubley, not to bury him. Stan, for your many years of devotion to the school, we want to say thanks by giving you this award.
Thanks, Mo, for that introduction. Mo was one of my first students at Webb, and for many reasons he's remained one of my favorites. I truly appreciate being recognized for my service at Webb School. I want to thank some people without whom I would not have been successful and been able to serve and be recognized today. First and foremost, let me thank my family. Teaching at Webb can sometimes be an all-consuming endeavor. My children and my wife, Janice, have been patient, have been loving as I pursued my career at Webb. And without their support, I wouldn't have gotten very far or enjoyed my work nearly as much. Let me thank also those who were my unofficial, younger and older mentors as I learned how to reach and to teach young people. Also, sincere thanks to the teachers who were willing to be mentored, guided, and led. Usually, there were 2 to 4 rookie teachers each year who were willing to be mentored as they started their careers. Usually there were 2 or 3 dozen teachers each year who were willing to be guided as they perfected their craft. And usually those same 2 or 3 dozen teachers were very willing to help us as we led the school through change and improvement. Thanks for the opportunity to have been a part of that evolution. Whether it was in creating a winter program in the 70s, introducing service learning in the 90s, or expanding course offerings while I was Director of Studies, or most importantly, by improving dramatically the breadth and depth of Webb School education. My thanks go to the various trustees and chairs of the Board of Trustees, people like John Hardin, Webb Fallon, Jim Mattos, Phil Coop, and Ed Davies, who's here today, who over those years employed heads of schools and associate heads who had character and vision. And then they allowed those school heads and leaders to give others and me the latitude to instill character and to develop that vision. Particularly notable to me in that list of school teachers and leaders are Luke Boyd and John Frere. Finally, thank you, the students and graduates and supporters of Webb School. Why are you here today? What brings you back from around the country and around the world to this small village, to this small boarding and day school? Whether you're from Beijing or Belmead, whether you're from Columbia, South America, or Columbia, Tennessee, what brings you back mentally many times and brings you back physically today? Today you're probably here and you have returned to see those buildings where you studied and lived. You've definitely come to see your friends and teachers with whom you studied and lived. But I think the most compelling reason, even if you may not have actually acknowledged it, is that you've come home. Returned to the place where you grew up, socially, intellectually, and ethically. And I too returned to Webb because it is a place where I too grew up, both as a teacher and as a person. Though unofficial, I too am in a sense a graduate of Webb School. Those who had me in class know that I rarely ended class before the bell rang. So let me teach or reteach you a couple of lessons before the bell rings for me to conclude. One thing that I tried to instill as we studied literature and as you became writers was the importance of being clear, concise, correct, and convincing. Those 4 qualities apply to writers, but they also apply to your professional lives, to your social interactions, and to your personal relationships. I hope you'll always be intentionally clear, concise, correct, and convincing. The second lesson is encapsulated in Tennyson's poem Ulysses, which 11th graders and I studied every spring after Shakespeare. At the end of that dramatic monologue, Ulysses is speaking to the mariners who have been his companions through years of voyages and adventures. The hero declares, "Some work of noble note may yet be done, not unbecoming those who strove with God. Come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield." Whether you're a recent graduate of the Webb School or an older, quote, alum like me, it's never too late to pursue new opportunities, to strive, to continue to be that tireless worker that Sonny valued so much, to seek your goals, ideally to find and claim those things that you will cherish, and whether you attain them or not, never to yield to detractors, to disappointments, or to age. I wish you well on your voyages and adventures, and I thank many of you for your roles in mine. Thank you.